Hey everybody, Mike here at the Man Cave. Got a packed agenda for you today. Concentrating on the Wolves off season. I got Steve, Brett, and Ramon here. Got Walter here on the running the audio video. So we're gonna dig right in, and we'll start off with the off season and the draft. Got to say, it was very surprising. I remember I was outside cutting my grass because we weren't supposed to pick till late in the first round. Well, fortunately, Mr. Conley decided to get in there, draft up, and we ended up getting Rob Dillingham. So great pickup. Works on a future need. Plus, it gives support to Mr. Conley, who's no longer, he's a little long in the tooth nonetheless. But Ramon, your take on the draft.
Well, I too was shocked. We went into it with the number 27 pick, and I was actually playing basketball myself, missing layups, getting crossed up by
Love it.
young, faster, better players. And then I got a text between games that the Wolves had moved up. And I thought, oh, they probably just moved up a couple slots. But then I saw that they moved all the way up to the 8th pick, and eventually found out it was Rob Dillingham. And then found out that it was only for I think a 2031 first and then a 2030 first round swap.
Yeah.
So it was major shock to see them be able to move up without giving up a ton of assets, considering they had such limited assets, and then to be able to address a short-term need, the backup point guard position, scoring off the bench, and then also a long-term need, and that's the future starting point guard. So I was shocked, and to get Terrence Shannon Jr., who had his off-season issues, or actually in-season issues during the college year, but that hurt his draft stock. But to see someone who was still productive in college, to get him at number 27 was also pretty surprising. Well, maybe not surprising, but I thought the Wolves did an amazing job considering the limited number of assets they had, considering the limited cap space situation. So huge to me. Tim Connolly, hat tip to him once again. And I'm curious to hear what Brett has to say.
And I'm right there with you. I mean, I just remember the moment, you have the draft on, and it's just kind of background noise, knowing that the Wolves aren't going to be picking until 20-something. We're only on number 8, and then you hear, oh, he's traded to Minnesota. Like, okay, so right away, what did we give up? We don't really have any draft capital in the immediate future. There's not a ton of youthful assets that we could pack it. I don't really think that Leonard Miller's moving the needle for anybody. So I'm like, man, it's probably got to be Nas, or maybe it's maybe it's a Cat situation. If it is Cat, you would hope you get a little more than a number 8 pick this year. It's probably not Rudy because, it's San Antonio. So, the only guy that I think moves the needle for San Antonio to put next to Wemby would probably be Nas. So I would have never imagined that a pick that in 2031, 7 years from now, gets it done. Like you said, Ramon, it's an immediate need at backup point guard. And then I also think that when you look at Anthony Edwards, the future of Anthony Edwards here, right? It's going to be multi-phased. It's going to be the first, not to say that he's going to do what Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant did, but Kobe has that first run with Shaq, Robert Horry, Derek Fisher, and them. Then he runs it back again with Pau Gasol. If you really want to maximize the Anthony Edwards window, it's going to have to be multi-phase. He's not going to have Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns and Mike Conley forever. So I think that it did a ton to set us up for that next phase where it's maybe Ant, Jaden, Nas, Dillingham, TSJ. And then another thing, too, we just lost Sachin Gupta to, I believe it was Chelsea FC the other day. So you're not going to see as many of those Gupta specials contractually in future off season. So I think that getting a little bit younger and a little bit cheaper in the next couple of years was massive for us. So, that draft could not have gone any better. But, I'll pass it on.
Yeah, number one, when I heard that, I thought for sure, Cat was gone. When they traded back up, I'm like, no, God, why? Why are you doing this? This isn't the time to do it. But, yeah, the other thing about the draft that I was looking at, I'm like, okay, could somebody explain to me the logic of a kid who's probably, I don't know, 10 right now is now going to be is now a draft pick that was traded for Rob Dillingham. Like, you got some 10-year-old playing AAU or some shit right now. You know what I mean? And he's going to be, your rights have just been traded, but I'm still in 5th grade. So that part kind of blew my mind. But yeah, I think, bringing in Dillingham, he's almost identical to Conley. Conley 6 foot 175, Dillingham 6'1", 176. Hopefully he fills out with some of the maturity and the mental smarts that Conley has. So far what we saw in the G League or the Summer League, I think he did good. Obviously room for growth. I don't know if he's going to be a little bit of a two-way player to start the season or something like that. We'll talk about that later. But that, and then, our other guy here, Mr. Terrence Shannon, yeah, he had his issues this last, in college or whatnot, but I'm interested to see where he's going to fit in. I don't know, and we'll talk about that in some of the preview stuff, but I'm looking at our roster and I'm looking at who we have, and I'm like, okay, he's a little bit more physical, but is he smaller Nas? You know what I mean? Is he a bit? Is he a Nas that's 6 inches shorter? You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out where he's going to fit in, but we can talk about that in the preview show. But I think overall the Wolves did great, trading back up into number 8. They didn't give up anything that screwed up our window right now, right? I mean, I think that's a big thing. We've got so many years with our superstar, Mr. Ant, and then, that's it. And we've only got so many years left with Rudy and stuff. So I'm glad to see they didn't mortgage our present, to be able to try and swing for the fences there.
Yeah, and what I like is about Shannon is he's a grown man. He's 24 years old. He's ready to play now, which is a good thing. And we're going to need him to contribute right away. What that's going to be, we don't know yet, as Steve said. But the future looks bright. Great draft. I think a lot of the pundits gave them an A or a B. So we'll see how it pans out in the next few weeks when they start the preseason and then eventually the regular season. The off season obviously had minimal action, I would say. We picked up a couple of players, but we lost 2 key players, in my opinion. One being Mr. Kyle Anderson, Slowmo, and Jordan McLaughlin. Jordan McLaughlin was a favorite of mine. I can remember, Ramon, you and I were at a game a couple years ago where they had to bring him in because our buddy D'Lo, once again, choking in the playoffs. So McLaughlin, if I'm not mistaken, was at the Grizzlies Game 5, I believe. He pretty much single-handedly won that game for us. So,
yeah.
Like J-Mac, they didn't play him much in the playoffs, so I'm not horribly surprised that he departed. Slowmo was, let's be honest, god-awful all season. I think after the trade deadline, when he realized he wasn't going to get dealt, he actually picked up his game a little. And then I will say this, he was great in the playoffs. I mean, his durability, the amount of positions he can play, etc. I mean, he can play all 5 positions. So we will miss him
slowly.
Yeah. Ramon, your thoughts on the off season?
Well, I mean, J-Mac, smaller guy, special place in my heart, undrafted, really built himself up. He's a success story, I think, for the Wolves development program. Gonna miss him. Slowmo, gonna miss his defense, leadership, versatility, his passing ability. And I think, one other thing I think that's really underrated about him were his celebrations. Did you ever see how he'd react when Ant had the dunks? I think when he threw down on John Collins, he had just a very, very cool celebration. And it was just like pure joy. Like he looked like a fan and he was a player. So I thought, I'm going to miss that. But the guy just couldn't shoot, and he just wouldn't shoot. And so when he was in the game and he'd be spotted up in the corner, you basically had a defender that could just collapse into lane, would keep and cat other players. I guess, and so that aspect of it won't miss as much. And frankly, the Wolves just couldn't afford him. Considering the luxury tax and the new collective bargaining agreements. $9-10 million a year was just something they couldn't do. And they replaced him essentially with Joe Engles, who also a veteran player, also not exactly a speed demon on the court, but he brings something, right? He's I think brings that leadership, those leadership qualities. He brings that ball handling. He's an underrated passer. But the biggest differences I'd say between him and Slowmo are he can really shoot it. I think he's an elite level shooter off the catch, and that's huge when you have guys like Ant, guys like Cat who can get to the basket, or Rudy who rolls to the basket a lot. Having like another shooter that can catch it and let it fly and hit it on a regular basis, that's just going to really open things up. Another thing he can do is he can run your offense. I think people forget that he used to do that a lot for Utah. So is it a plus to lose Slowmo and then bring in Engles? It's hard to say. I think your defense is going to suffer, but your offense may improve a little bit. But overall, I think the Wolves were 15th or 17th rated offense in the NBA this year, number 1 in defense. You want to see that offense rise, right? But how much will the defense fall off as a result? That's I think maybe one of the biggest questions to see if we can become a true championship contender. So we'll miss him, but I'm excited about Joe Ingles. And let's not forget PJ Dozier, I think, is another guy that they brought in. And considering that Rob Dillingham is the backup point guard right now, and I know Naw can play the backup point guard role, Ant can run it as well, PJ Dozier might have a role on this team eventually too. Thoughts, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think that's kind of my, coming out of the offseason, that was my number one point of concern, is that backup point guard role. And really the number 3 point guard, because you're right. I mean, not only is Rob Dillingham a rookie, but there's going to be nights where Mike Conley doesn't play because of load management. He's 37 years old. There were nights on back-to-backs where he just wouldn't play. So are you comfortable wheeling out Rob Dillingham as a starter? And then I guess your number 2 point guard on those nights would be Naw, with maybe a mixture of Joe Ingles playing that playmaker role, maybe some point Ant. But yeah, I think Dozier will probably at some point have to get in there and maybe give us 5 to 10 minutes a night. Maybe it's Daishen Nix. I don't know, but that's definitely the area of concern. But you're right. I mean, as far as the offseason goes, we pretty much ran it back. We did lose Slowmo, but I mean, we were kind of prepared to lose Slowmo at the trade deadline. So we really had 3 months of borrowed time with Slowmo. I think you're replacing him with a platoon of kind of Joe Ingles and maybe a little bit of TSJ. Probably more so Ingles, but you're right. You're not going to have that extra big body to throw at Jokic. I think that was a lot of what we did to stifle Denver, was Rudy, Cat, Nas, and then even Slowmo to get in there and just keep a fresh big body on him. I don't think Joe Ingles is going to be able to give you that kind of look on defense when it comes to Jokic. But I also don't think Denver's really the boogeyman that we need to worry about anymore. I think that they lost some guys, so I don't think that like being built to beat Denver is the most important thing. I think, yeah, as we saw in May, we're going to have to go shot for shot with Dallas and maybe OKC. So it'll be nice to have Joe Ingles out there willing to shoot the ball, and whether he's hit it or not, he's going to take the shot, whereas you knew Slowmo just would not take the shot. So that really closed up the floor on offense and made things a lot tougher for the Ants and Mike Conleys of the world. So overall, yeah, I think we're going to lose a little bit on defense, but I think that we'll see. You're definitely adding some offense in that second unit, so I'm excited to see Nas and Joe Ingles on the same court at the same time, 2 big guys that can flame throw, so that'll be interesting. So yeah, a lot of exciting combinations in that second unit via the draft and free agency. So see what happens. I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, it was. The thing about Joe Ingles is, yeah, he's probably the best shooter at your local YMCA from the looks of him. You know what I mean? But he's also, there's one thing about the offseason that we got to keep in mind. Memphis brought in Zach Edey from Purdue, and that guy is a unit. That's like 7'4" Wemby, but with actual, but like my thickness. You know what I mean? Like Zach Edey is a load, and having somebody that, you throw Ingles on him, even just to take 2-3 fouls to take the pressure off of, our other bigs out there. Rudy's gonna, we're really gonna learn a lot about Memphis. If they get their star point guard back, they get John Morant and his 45 back or whatever. They got him and throwing it up to Edey. It's really going to put a strain on us. So it's not just OKC. I mean, Jokic is Jokic, and we've seen in the Olympics that, even around other players, Jokic gets disinterested or gets tired, and you can get him out of the way. Memphis and OKC are the ones to me that make me the most nervous. So I think Engles is going to help with that, because now if we can get a little more action out of Rudy in the offense, we got an extra person to kick to instead of just Slowmo standing, like you said, Slowmo standing off in the corner and just, the forgotten man over there. I think now you got an extra legitimate hit, especially if you can get Nas to start hit, or not Nas, but Jaden, J-Mac, sorry. Jaden, yeah. Help me.
Jaden McDaniels.
I'm at that point in my life where words...
Slim, a.k.a. Slim.
Tilted brim, yes, we will call him. So I think that, the addition of Engles is really... It's going to be interesting. I'm nervous about our defense, because our defense really did keep us in a lot of these games, because our offense wasn't as good, but at times. But... we are picking up another shooter, so maybe his plus minus isn't that bad if he gives up a little couple more baskets, but he's hitting more threes. We'll see. I don't know. Oh, and J-Mac, I'm so sad. I saw that guy when I was at a restaurant in Roseville at a steakhouse. I walked right by him and told my wife, I'm like, that's J-Mac. She goes, who the hell's J-Mac? I'm like, he plays for the Wolves. You're going to get his autograph? I'm like, I'm not a douche. I will not do that while he's eating with his wife.
Yes, there you go.
Every little cell of my 12-year-old body in me was like, go get his autograph. I didn't do it, so, okay.
No, that's good. And another one that I forgot about, too, is Wendell Moore Jr. Wendell offensively just couldn't get it going. I remember I was at a game his rookie season where they actually started him, and he bodied up on Ja Morant and did a great job, but just never really had the opportunity to get the minutes. His offense, I'll be honest, seemed a little suspect. I liked him on defense, but I think, Ramon, earlier you were talking about the salary cap. His tax ramifications were pretty brutal, if I'm not mistaken. Because they're up above that apron.
Yeah.
His $2.5 million salary, actually trading him saved us $10 million. So
yeah,
that was a good move, and we'll miss him. Was a team member for 2 years. Was one of the guys you'd see on TV pointing every time we dunked on somebody. He was right up in there. So love that tradition. But best of luck to Wendell. I believe he's with the Pistons now.
Did you have a hard time telling Wendell from Josh Minot, though, with their hairstyles and stuff? Was that tough for you? That was tough. I'd be like, oh, that's... I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Josh is a lot taller.
Okay.
But, and last to cover here for the off-season for this group here is the Olympics. Olympics were huge. Luckily, the U.S., they had a couple of games that made me a bit nervous. But nonetheless, they came out with the gold. Steph Curry obviously had an excellent 2 games at the end there, but there were 4 Timberwolves that were in the Olympics, and one of them
count Rudy. He was kind of there.
Yeah, he was there, but and one of them was just a rock star, and the other ones didn't play as much or didn't have as much success. But nonetheless, it was good to see 4 Timberwolves in the Olympics. So, Ramon, take it away and talk about what you saw from the Olympics from our Timberwolves.
Before I get into the Olympics, I do also want to give a shout out to Luka Garza as well for the offseason. He kind of graduated or got promoted from a regular contract, I think. I think he got a multi-year deal. I think it's guaranteed minimum contract, if I remember correctly, but still, that's another, I'd say, success story for the Timberwolves development program, which is something that we couldn't say for 20 plus years. So credit to him, credit to the organization as well. He's a fun player to have around, and a guy that's always ready to play whenever he gets his chance, and he's not afraid of anybody. In regards to the Olympics, it was really amazing to be able to see a 22-year-old kid play with several all-time greats and make an impact and be a rotation player. Help them win the gold. Jason Tatum, who is the best player on the NBA championship team, the Boston Celtics, this past season, he didn't play much. And Edwards played a lot throughout the Olympics. So to see that it's a great time to be a Wolves fan, I would say. Regarding Rudy, I watched a couple of the French games. It didn't look like he was a major part of the rotation. He played, but he seemed to be a bit of an afterthought. There were a couple of other players that I think could shoot it more, could get out in space and guard better than he can, so his role was limited. But selfishly, I was kind of glad to see that, because a couple of years ago, right before he joined the Timberwolves, he played, I think, in Eurobasket. And his first year as a Wolf didn't go as well as they hoped. And one of the reasons given was that they said he came into camp a little bit beat up from Eurobasket because he played so much and he played so hard. So to see him not play heavy minutes in the Olympics, selfishly as a Wolves fan, made me feel pretty good, because I thought, okay, he's not going to be beat up. He's not going to be tired from playing in this, and he'll be ready to go for what I hope will be a journey to the title. Joe Ingles, I know he played for Australia. I don't know much about it. I'm hoping somebody else knows a little bit more about how he did. But no, I think he was very ineffective from what I understand. He didn't shoot well for the Wolves during the playoffs, I think, in the last couple of series, and I think that continued for Canada. And so hopefully that was just a slump, and he'll be able to correct that, because he's going to be a free agent after next year. So if he can shoot it well and defend like we know he can, he's going to get paid next year.
You nail on the head on all those points. I mean, it's just incredible to watch Anthony Edwards. I think we all are aware of the star that he's becoming, and I think the rest of the world is becoming privy to that now. So it was incredible to watch him. I mean, I joked with some of my friends. I don't have kids, so I think as a Timberwolves fan, watching Anthony Edwards in the Olympics was as close as I felt to like watching my kid play sports, right? Like,
Love it.
Is Ant having fun? Are they being nice to him on the bench? Are the vets being nice to him? But it was like watching the freshmen that made varsity and all the seniors just absolutely love him. So it was just super cool as a Wolves fan to be able to watch that. And then, I mean, to your point, Ramon, about Rudy, I felt the exact same way. The Eurobasket 2022, and I think he played in FIBA as well. And with these European guys, they just approach that international basketball so differently. So like 2022, I'm sitting there like, Rudy, come on, like we're paying you, sit out FIBA. But these guys just approach it differently. There's a different passion for international basketball. So I think that we as Wolves fans have received somewhat of a blessing in disguise from the French national team having Victor Wembanyama, because it's kind of going to naturally phase Rudy out of their lineup. I mean, I think he had like 3 minutes against Canada, and then he maybe had like 10 minutes in the gold medal game. So I can't see a scenario where Rudy's beat up coming into 2024 because of the workload that he had at the Olympics, because there really wasn't much of one. And I don't think that Wemby is going to be giving up many minutes in 2028 to a 33-year-old Rudy, whatever he'll be at that time. So nail on the head there. And I think apply the opposite logic to Ant. And I don't think Ant is the same player and the same mindset that he was in 2022. But remember, we lost to Memphis, went through the summer, and he kind of bulked up. He had this weird philosophy that he was going to come in kind of like James Harden. And then he was out of shape. Like, Rudy was beat up at the beginning of 2022. The chemistry wasn't there, and Ant was out of shape. And then he played FIBA in 23, and it was like he had something to do all summer, so he didn't have a chance to get out of shape, and he looked great come October. So I cannot imagine that Ant has found time to get out of shape from August to now. So I think that the opposite logic that we apply to Rudy with that international basketball, I think it's a great thing for Ant at this point in his career to stay busy all summer, stay in shape. As far as the other two go, I guess the only positive that I can say as far as Na goes, I guess he, iron sharpens iron. He got to guard his cousin in practice all summer, so he was busy. Joe Ingles, I think, I don't have much data there either. I watched a few Australia games. I don't think he played much. I think it was more of a ceremonial. There's only so many players in Australia, and Joe Ingles is a legend there, so he's going to be on the team. So, but again, Joe Ingles is like 37, so I'm glad he didn't get a ton of burn, because we're going to need him at spots this season. So, overall, great Olympics, super fun, and just hopefully an appetizer for what we have to look forward to this season. So, pass it off to you, Steve.
Yeah, I think a big thing for Ant in the Olympics. One, he really. Ant's had a personality where he's aggressive, but he's a nice aggressive. You know what I mean? Like KG right? He's the guy who would kick you in the stomach and then spit in your mouth when you opened it, right? Because you're like, ugh, that's KG. He was a hard ass like that. Ant is a tough player, but he doesn't have that same type of mentality. And I think the fact that he went and played on the international stage with heroes of his and got the acceptance, right? I think that he's getting comfortable with kind of this mantle that he's been handed as maybe not the next face of the NBA, but one of the faces of the NBA. So I think it was good. And he was able to lead the team in scoring in limited minutes, right? He came out and he'd go flamethrower for about 10 minutes, and he'd just crush it. I mean, if it wasn't for Steph Curry going off in the semifinal and the final, Ant was our leading scorer. Right, and he wasn't playing entire games. He was playing less than 15.
He's coming off the bench too.
He's coming off the bench, 15, 17 minutes a game, and he's putting up some of the best points. And I think that experience for him is going to play dividends for us in this upcoming season, because then when he comes out and we need that instant spark, it doesn't take half a quarter to all the third period, third quarter for him to just kind of get rolling and get his mojo back. He's learning how to be able to, okay, I've only got so much time. I got to hit it right now. And I think, and that was one of the complaints I had, and you heard me throwing things in the man cave here, where it was like, Ant, you have to attack. You can't be sitting around trying to, LeBron's almost 40. He's going to facilitate now. Ant was doing too much of that last year. So for me, the big thing from the Olympics was Ant learning how to be aggressive, get hot, find your shot, and be impactful in short minutes. Make you feel good on the inside.
Yeah, and I'd say one of the things, hopefully for this year, and we'll do the preview show here soon, but the maturation of Ant from the complaining to the refs. We saw, and we were all driven nuts for years by Karl Anthony Towns, and I got to say, last year was the first year where Cat, backed off from whining to the officials and running down the court with his arms raised, and I was happy to see it. This year, I would like for Ant not to say, hey, every time he's driving the lane. I'd like for him to get back on defense, because we know he's a great defensive player. Hell, he had the block of the year in addition to the dunk of the year. So I'd like to see him get that maturity, get back on court. Don't complain to the refs. I mean, the technicals are a concern too, because I think he was getting close to the point where he would get a suspension over that. Yeah. So love Ant, but I mean, hopefully he takes that next step there. So I love your guys' points. I do want to say, in regards to Rudy, between Shaq and is it Lively from Dallas, the center there? I can't forget. I think it's
Lively.
Yeah, Lively. Yeah. Lively, rookie. And I'll say this. Lively was great in the Western Conference Finals, but for him to start spewing stuff about Rudy, Shaq, let's be honest, Shaq and Barkley, they might as well just be shock jocks. All they want to do is insult other players, so it gets kind of old. But to your guys' point about Rudy not getting a lot of playing time, which is going to work in our favor, I hope Rudy comes in motivated because of all the criticism he continues to get from other players, let alone the talking heads. So hopefully Rudy comes in motivated, ready to kick butt.
And I'm sorry, I don't get it. Like, the guy, half the time, and I was bitching about this too when we were watching games, Rudy would roll to the hoop, and Ant's just like, nah, man, I'm good. And he'd hang on to the ball, or whoever the point guard was, he'd be hanging on to the ball. Rudy's rolling. I'm sorry, when you've got... And I think this is where Joe Ingles, we'll get into more of it in the preview show, but Joe Ingles can help because they weren't trusting that when that double team collapses on Rudy, that he'd either be able to fight through and score, and B, get a kick out. But regardless, they jump on him and they jump on him, but I'm like, he's a 4-time defensive player of the year. Like, he's a gravity well. He's a gravity well in the center of the court. We'll save it. I'll go off on the preview show. That stuff drives me nuts. Shaq was, okay, Shaq Diesel, we get it. You were a unit and whatnot, but that's not the way the Timberwolves play, and that's not the way the Timberwolves win.
And how uncool is it for you to talk about another man's money as well? So, Shaq.
Oh, my God.
Shaq, do better.
Go DJ or something.
God. But that's a wrap for this show. We will get together again soon, hopefully with all the same participants. We'll get something on the calendar in the next couple of weeks, and we will do a preview show.
Yeah.
And we will see you again soon. Appreciate it, gentlemen. Great time. Go Wolves.
Brett. Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, we'll see you guys.
It was fun.
Did you stop? All right, you guys can hang on.
Yeah.
Are we stopping?